Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
How's the new location?
It's getting there. It's still a work in progress. I'm still waiting for my fiber to be installed. So I'm suffering through a 4G connection that decides every so often to turn itself off or lose connection. So if I lose you, that's why.
Gotcha, yeah.
But other than that, yeah, we're good. I mean, it's good to be in our own place again. You know, we've kitted it out very basically because we're not sure how long we're going to be here for. But yeah, the kids have got their space, which is helpful, and we're feeling a bit normal at this stage, which is good.
That's all we can kind of ask for right now. A little bit of normalcy.
How are things with you?
Good. It's actually unseasonably warm here right now. I was thinking I should look up the Celsius conversion. I think it tells you in the weather app. Maybe it doesn't. But it's supposed to be a high of 81 today, which if I do a quick...
That's about 20 something.
It's very warm.
Yeah, I wish the world would get onto one scale for things. You know.
Well, it's usually our fault.
yeah, usually. I mean, I always laugh when I go to Canada because I always think of Canada being like the British America because it's the metric system with Americans. Well, American sounding.
They use some of they kind of are in between though. I think they use some of our the measurements, but.
Yeah, they're still left-hand drive. Yeah, they left-hand drive. They use the metric system. And of course, they speak English and French. And then the UK is right-hand drive with the imperial system for driving, and English and French is your second language. So it's pretty similar. Yeah, the story behind the UK, I believe, was when Thatcher was Prime Minister, she stopped the program to switch completely to metric. I don't remember why, but that's the rumor.
Yeah, I'm often jealous. I mean, even just going through school and the metric system, it's order of tens, things make sense. So, and learning both, and it's very confusing from a young age.
No, completely. The desktop. Yeah, I just listened to that podcast episode you sent me to have a listen to, the Depresh one.
Yeah, Depresh Mode. Yeah, it's a new podcast. I'd seen that episode recommended, so I listened to it. It's on burnout, and I thought it was pretty interesting and made some good points. Yeah,
the burnout being 90%, I thought was quite a thing. Because if you look at there were two things that I took out. One was the high rate of burnout, but also the sort of response from a business is typically to give you an app and say, well, sort it out yourself. Go use the Calm app or something like that, and not actually change the parameters of what's causing the burnout. Because burnout is obviously got many factors to it. But those are the two things that I picked up on personally.
Yeah, I thought the researchers mentioned that, the 90% rate burnout is exceptionally high, especially considering that they surveyed pretty widely and globally. So that's kind of alarming, but maybe not surprising from people's lived experiences. I think it's just every aspect of life, maybe not just work, that's just, become harder because of the pandemic. But on the sort of approach that businesses have to take to reduce and avoid employees burning out, I thought, just like you mentioned, there are points around how you really have to make sure your basic hygiene is in place when it comes to HR policies and fair pay and sort of the structural aspects before you tack on the things like the free yoga classes or the ice cream machines and I think this was a problem before, a lot of these, a lot of offices have introduced sort of more fun perks, I think, in the last, decade or two. That's really become a thing to have office snacks and different classes and meditations and whatnot. But if people fundamentally have conflict with how you're running your business or how you're treating them, those things are pretty poor Band-Aid, I think.
Yeah, the phrase lipstick on a pig is what I think about when I see those sort of try this app or, when you haven't solved those core problems, as you say, you just colouring over them and hoping that you might retain the people that are unhappy. And I thought actually, now that you mentioned, there was a third thing, which was the cost of keeping staff and retaining them versus having them leave after a year and having to rehire and retrain and all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the other challenges, because we're all remote now, is if someone joins new, their experience. I mean, I've worked in companies where you join and you haven't actually met the people you're working with until you do a trip out to wherever they are. Or when I worked for Upland, it was in Montreal. The first time I met people was 2 months after I'd been working for the company, and then the next time I'd met them was 3-4 months later. It was, and you can't build a culture very easily that way. You can't. I mean, personally, I always felt you're trying to compensate because you're so remote that you work longer hours. You tend to say yes to everything to get involved. Meanwhile, you don't know what your workload is going to be like, and you end up there burning out, ironically.
Definitely. I thought what they were saying around, and I'm guilty of this too, but treating the shift to remote work because of the pandemic as if it was sort of normal remote work, or as if the two things were different, as if, remote work under normal circumstances and remote work because you have to do it and you can't leave your house, and all the other things that are like messing us up psychologically right now, just having to like live through a crisis, that those things are very much not the same, and that having other family members at home and kids at home and all of the other things that are going on are not standard things that you have to deal with when you're remote working, pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID. So yeah.
Well, you're so right. And I'll be honest, I've actually almost forgotten some of that stuff because we've been, here for so long where it's been fairly normal. Yes, I still have to deal with, having to hold the baby while I'm on a call, or my son's home today because he's sick, so I can hear him riding his motorbike in the garden, those things. But I think the biggest problem still is, regardless of whether you're working from home in the pandemic or not, is having boundaries between when you're actually working and not working. And it's something that's coming up more and more in our conversations and where I work now, where you've got people in different time zones. How do you overlay them? And also, do you want to enforce a factory mindset of saying work 9 till 6 in your time zone, and outside of those times then you've got stuff to do? Or do you go to the more results oriented way of working, which says, look, this is the objectives for the quarter, these are the things that need to happen, go and do it, and raise your hand if you're running into trouble, when you need help, etc. But we're not going to manage you, micromanage you for your time. It's up to you. If you want to go and take the kids out for your 1 hour of exercise and that, or we had some guys taking their laptops with family to hospitals and stuff like that to go to work there. It's not really conducive. You should either be doing the work or you should be going to see the family in the hospital, not trying to do both. And I think those are tricky things to address. I don't think there's a simple answer at all.
Yeah, it's just a big cultural mindset shift that a lot of companies have to make, and address a lot of the situations, I think, with nuance and individually, but also set like a corporate culture. But I think you're so right. You can't, no one's going to be doing effective work if they're trying to take care of their life and work at the same time. Sometimes it's just, you need to put the work aside, but not all companies kind of offer that flexibility or make that feel welcome. Or sometimes, it might be okay, but it's just not communicated.
Yeah, I think there's a level of trusting the person, but then the person also being accountable. So, and I've seen this in various things. So the one piece is you agree what the results are going to be that you're looking for, and the person goes off and does it, and they rope in the people that need to help them, and it should all work out. The other one is that they take it on, but then they don't keep it balanced. They end up doing too much family stuff or too much personal stuff, and they don't balance it out by catching up the work or doing the work they're supposed to be doing. So, in a working week of 40 hours, they're spending every day doing house stuff. And look, I'm guilty. We've just moved into a house, but thankfully we moved into a house over a long weekend. So, my long weekend was spent doing stuff and running around and the rest of it. But if I've got a document to get up before I go on holiday tomorrow for a couple of days, if it means I work till midnight tonight, it means I work till midnight tonight. It doesn't change I don't get paid more or less for whatever. I'm just managing my time because I'm going to be out of the office for 4 days plus a weekend. So these are the things that you've got to, as a professional, I think, manage. And because the technology exists that you can do it anywhere, and you are, now hopefully geared up with all the tools and the things to do your job, you've saved the commute every day because you don't have to commute. So you should have the time to do the normal 6-8 hour day, depending on how you look at those things.
Does the UK have a minimum weeks of vacation kind of policy like Denmark and other countries?
It's a very complicated system. I find it complicated. There's various types of employment and various types of contracts. So they have these, what they call a zero-rated contract, which basically means you get paid. Actually, I don't know how it works. I'd be lying if I tried to explain it. But I would guess it's along the lines of there's no commitment to paying you every day to work. You get paid based on you being pulled into work. So if you think about like an MP or a member of parliament at least, or you think about a grocery stacker at a supermarket, both of those are on demand. So an MP can be pulled in. Look, an MP is pulled in every day. A packer might be pulled in a couple of days a week, not every day necessarily. And when they come in, they get paid an amount, whatever that amount is. You then have normal full-time employment, which I think the minimum, well, you can have part-time employment, obviously that's going to be dependent on the need. But I think the minimum is, well, sort of average is 35 hours a week for an average role, up to a maximum of 47 hours a week, 48 hours a week over a 17-week period. That's basically compensated for overtime. And those sort of jobs typically don't get paid overtime. And why I say it's complicated is, you've got the UK, it's split up into 4 countries. So you've got Wales, England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. They'll have their own nuances around that stuff as well. So you just have to be aware of where you're working and any sort of changes in those rules. South Africa works on a slightly different structure. You obviously get your day rates and all that as well. But typically you're looking at 40 hours being the expected working week. And that's pretty much it. And there's a certain amount of time allocated to sick leave. There's quite a lot of holidays here, so your actual leave allocation is quite small. I think it's 15 days or something like that, whereas the UK is 25 days. So there's all those different things. But most of that means nothing nowadays because everyone's been working from home for the last year. So guys are literally going on holiday because they've got to use up their leave. And some of them are saying, well, I'm going to go on holiday, but I'm just going to do a week of holiday and a week, stay an extra week and just work the extra week there. Because I can do, what's the difference? I'm still working from home. And schooling's been interesting because instead of all the schools going back here full-time, some of the schools are only going back part-time, so 1 or 2 days a week. And the rest of the week, they're working online, which I think is a really good way to approach it. I think that takes a lot of load off the teachers, which means they can focus more on the pupils. It teaches the pupils how to self-manage, which is one of the key things I think you need to learn at school. And I think the technology will get better and the solutions will get better because of that approach. In fact, I spoke to one guy when we were in Sun City, and he said, my kids are digital kids. They stay home and they do their school in the mornings, and they go play sport in the afternoon. And that's how they make their friends. I thought, okay, and we travel. So that's the route he's taken. And look, travel's the best education you give anybody. You learn lots about yourself and what you don't know when you see other people and their cultures.
Definitely. Yeah, I bring up the sort of vacation time question because I've seen there seems to be a trend of companies trying to throw vacation at the problem of burnout. So I think it was LinkedIn who announced this week that they would be giving all of their staff, except for like a group of like essential employees just to keep things running, the same week off. Like the whole company would be taking the same week off, which is a very interesting, novel kind of concept because, usually you stagger those things to keep the business going and not have disruptions. But they, explicitly said, we're trying to give people a break so they're not burning out. And a lot of people I saw, just comments on the post talking about, this is nice, but this isn't really, 1 week of vacation doesn't solve the problem of burnout.
Yeah, I mean, so the problem with burnout and that sort of stuff is usually it's more than one thing, and you can't give everyone the same solution. So I can understand why the LinkedIn thing didn't work or people were upset about it. It's the same as many years ago we looked at giving people incentives by paying them more money. We found that didn't work because it works for initially, but then you actually don't get any results after. There was a study that came up with that as well. You got to really understand the behaviors that drive the people. And some people, it's having time to have a hobby, but not feeling like they're on call all the time. And that's the problem with this homeworking, is that even though it's in a different room for me, I still walk past my study a couple of times in the night and go, oh, maybe I should just check my email, or maybe I should send something, or maybe I should just work one more hour on that document that I'm working on. So you're never really breaking, whereas when you're commuting and you're leaving your laptop at the office, when you get home, you get home. Nothing you can do about it. It's got to wait until tomorrow. So yeah, I can see where, like I said, it's not a simple solution.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I think we can tie it up there. A good discussion on burnout, and definitely an area I think we'll keep seeing companies take different approaches to try to solve this 90% problem.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks, Heather. Good to chat.
Okay, nice talking to you, Ryan.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter at the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.